Mr. Rowan Atkinson, isn't he sort of a guardian angel type character? Because he's
not really.
No?
I thought he was just kind of a random dude thrown in for comedic effect.
Got it. I thought he did everything really slow so that she would figure that kind of stuff out. I don't know. Oh, he also wrote Bridget Jones' Diary, too. This is a Richard Curtis verse. It's fantasy. Right? He's created his own, like, everyone's different. Everyone's, like, the fight between Colin Firth and Hugh Grant in Bridget Jones' Diary, like, it's the cheekiest fight ever. Like, it's a world where there's cheeky fights.
If A Bad Time had been made in the early 2000s or the 90s, Hugh Grant would have been playing Tim.
Oh.
100%.
Do you think Hugh Grant would have been as good as Domhnall Gleeson is?
I don't think so. Well, Hugh Grant, he always had that, like, foppish kind of, the awkward kind of, like, oh, well, I'm, very British, of course, but, could I possibly trouble you for a snog?
That's actually,
I could see him doing the awkward quite well.
Mm-hmm. And you know what's interesting? I learned on the commentary that Domhnall had Rachel McAdams do spoken word recordings of his favorite songs or poems, and then he would listen to it every morning before work because he was supposed to be really in love with her. So he woke up listening to her voice.
I guess it worked. Like, their chemistry was quite good, right?
Yeah, they nailed it. And I read that Zooey Deschanel was originally circling this project. And I like her a lot.
I don't know if she would have worked in the role. I really like her, but it would have been definitely, I think, a different vibe, I guess. Like, she's got that whole manic pixie dream girl thing.
Yeah. It's how would... Rachel's able to, like, she's like effervescent. Is that the right word? Wait. Is that the way? I don't know, but she's just very. Sure. She can pull off, because I think in a lesser actress's hands, this role could come across as a manic, pixie-ish chick. Don't you think? Because there's not much to her on paper, but
no, she just likes Kate Moss, and
she reads books.
Then for the rest of the movie, she's kind of just there to bear children and be the foil. Like, they don't really explore the relationship much past the initial kind of dating. Like, once that's kind of established, it's just like, right, that bit's done now. They're married, moving on.
This is more of a father-son movie, I guess, and her relationship. They pulled a big name, Rachel McAdams, for this movie, because her role is not huge, but she's on every poster, I would say. And I don't know. But she still adds. I mean, I still dig her in it. It's interesting how they kind of treat some of the women in this. So you have the mom who they constantly refer to as looking like Andy Warhol and just being sturdy. And then you have Vanessa Kirby, who's just they call her a prostitute most of the movie. And then like, she lives in her brothel of an apartment. And then there's Margot Robbie, who's just basically they glory light her the whole time.
Yeah, she's just like ridiculously stunning. She's just there to be like Margot Robbie, basically. Just be there and be stunning. Like, they don't really give her much to work with, but
was the movie so charming that you don't pick that up the first time? I guess the more you watch it, you're like, wait a second, she's just here to be an object, I guess, or to prove that you can't make someone fall in love with you.
Yeah, so when I was watching this earlier today, my wife came in the room in the scene where they're talking outside the theater or whatever, the opera, like when they're older and they meet, and she just like fobs her friend off and is like, I'm going for dinner with Tim now, and just the friend like has to fuck off, basically. And my wife is just there like, she's such a bitch. Which is and I was like, yeah, she is actually.
Yeah, and then Tim ditches his buddy.
Yeah. And then they just kind of go off. Wow, his coworker, I guess, is...
Yeah, I guess not buddy. But his friend actually keeps his mouth shut because he knows that they go out to hang out, but he's living with Mary.
Yeah, Rory. It's
a good coworker friend.
See, that's the thing. Like, what do you do when your kind of, I guess, cooler than you friend is going out for dinner with an attractive woman, even though he's attached? Do you stand up for yourself, or do you stick to your character and be spineless?
I guess
would even correct his boss that his name is not Rupert or Roger or whatever he's being called.
He had been there for a year or two.
Yeah.
I like Rory. He seems like a nice little guy.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. He's very, very nice, but he's, you know, also very easy to push around, I guess.
Yeah, he's the Rory character, I guess. Isn't Rory in Doctor Who kind of push around? Get pushed? He's a little
No,
more.
he's got a little bit of something to him. I quite liked Rory as a character. Didn't he end up like being trapped for 1,000 years or some nonsense?
Yeah.
Again, more time travel.
Peter Capaldi's what? He was in a place for what, 1 billion years, punching a wall once every day before being killed.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to spend your time.
I mean, what would you do if you had this power?
Yeah, I thought about this earlier today. Yeah, there are kind of a few things that came to mind. Just little things to improve, day-to-day things. Like I go back to, for example, when we used to play darts together, and I'd make sure that you'd never win.
You'd have the high score, that's for sure.
Yeah, you just kind of, little things like that. You could go back to, say, a
We did
soccer
that for
game,
years, man.
where, you could go back to like a soccer game, and you could be, if you remember a particular game where you almost did something really good, where it didn't quite come off, you could go back and just do it right this time.
Oh, yeah.
Take that chance and kind of just take that shot again. You missed a penalty, it's fine. Don't worry. After the game, go into the showers, go back to the penalty spot, and right, I'm hitting it the other way this time.
Boom. And I think Tim had the luxury of having a solid family to kind of, he was well raised, and he said that his day to day was kind of a pattern, and it seemed like a carefree childhood, I would say, that he grew up in. And so, do you think that aided him?
He was, I think like having the stability of his family, like, obviously being like very close, and, he's a well-rounded individual. He just goes to work, does his job, gets bored, bitches about it, same as everyone else. It's a normal day-to-day life. He's not going and doing, well, maybe we just don't see it. Maybe he's gone and done like the entire plot of Groundhog Day one day and just been like, right, today I'm robbing a bank. And it's like, right, that didn't work out.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could have fun with it.
Yeah, I guess. If you're not if you were H.H. Holmes and you got it, then that'd be horrible. Yeah. But no, but once again, it's a Richard Curtis verse. Man, I love that you said that. Richard Curtis verse. It's just pleasant. I dig it. I don't know. You can say weird things to parents and they're totally fine with it. Like, it's very, I don't know, but I think
I don't know. If your parent was Bill Nighy, I'm pretty sure you could say anything to him. He's just, he always plays that kind of chilled out, like laid back. Like he was in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy playing, was it Slarty Bartfast? And he was just kind of like, oh yeah, I make planets and I do fjords.
And then also in the new Emma, he's the best dad ever. My wife and I want to adopt him.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that.
It's good. And then I put up a question the other day, and a lot of people kind of loved it. So I said, what would you rather watch? Jean-Claude Van Damme in About Time 2 or Bill Nighy in Time Cop 2?
I'd watch Time Cop 2.
What would the plot of that be? So he's the cop. He's the time cop. He gets in that vessel.
It would be, I think, a very cerebral take on Time Cop rather than the, the kind of violent one we got. I think it would be Bill Nighy going around in a trench coat, just kind of figuring out what's going on and then having a reasonable conversation with the villain, and everybody decides that it's probably for the best that he comes with them, and it's all over.
That's the greatest movie ever made. It's just him sauntering the streets. He goes back
through the streets, chatting to people.
In like what, 17?
He'd go back and get to see his wife, because didn't the wife die in Time Cop?
Yeah.
Wasn't that like yeah?
Mm-hmm. He goes and hangs out with her, and he just chats and drinks tea. There's a 30-minute conversation where he just hangs out. Oh man, that movie sounds amazing. Oh my gosh. But I gotta tell you, it's just this performance by him though. No matter how many times I watch it or think about it or hear one of the songs like The Luckiest, I don't get teared up, but I get like I get not teared up, but I get almost teared up It really does hit you, though, when you realize that he'll... I mean, I think the neatest thing about this is that if Tim has his kids and he goes back in time, it's very specific, so he won't have that kid. So when his dad dies and he has a kid, he'll never be able to see him again. That's...
Yeah.
Like, all that time travel plot holes, all that other garbage kind of goes out the window because that's the main crux. Do you think Richard Curtis just... So I was listening to the commentary. I never really heard him talk about that. He wanted it to be like a very normal day. That's what he wanted. But like, it was just, I don't know. That's tough at the end. Like, I won't be able to see my dad if I have another kid. That's, I mean,
well, yeah, like that's again back to the very high personal stakes.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't change anything for anyone else. In fact, it's a really happy day for his wife, for his family. They brought a new child into the family. But for him, it's kind of bittersweet because he knows that will be the last time he can see his dad. And it's kind of, it's huge, right?
Oh, gosh. I can't even... You're just thinking about it. And then it's Bill Nighy as a dad. That's what makes it worse. If it was like Dennis Quaid, you're like, that's fine.
You're like, all right. Yeah.
But it's Bill Nighy. It's tough. Like, it just hits. And then hanging out, playing... I mean, it's just they just play table tennis and read books, and he just goes back in time.
Listen to old Italian music.
Oh yeah, I do like the Italian music in this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, oh man. But yeah, it's just I guess he's kind of a manic pixie dad.
Yeah, I'd say he would fit the trope almost.
Does it make sense though because he's had the time travel and just time to be relaxed, so he's so much more chill because he knows he can go back. Do you think that's what kind of made him like that? And not just...
Well, potentially we're seeing his second run at the day anyway. Like what he said is he's basically lived it once and then he goes back and lives it again, relaxed, not surprised by anything.
Oh, yeah. So he's just seen it all, been there. What happened to the uncle?
So I'm not too sure about the uncle. I don't know. So watching it back, I don't think he's actually related to Bill Nighy. I think he might be the mother's uncle, maybe.
Okay.
But, if he was related, my theory on him is that he's done too much time traveling and he's, just addled his brain a little bit and he doesn't know where he is or who people are or,
That's kind of what I was thinking. He sort of messed himself up. Because that's another interesting stake. And it's good that they never mention that, right? Because in this movie, he's just Uncle D. So they never say your brother or your sister.
Yeah, he's just Uncle Desmond. So it's...
I kind of like that he made himself crazy, though, by time traveling. That seems interesting. Because you could, maybe.
Well, who knows, what he tried to do or undo. Tried and failed to undo or undid and then saw the results of undoing it and had to put it back the other way because of the impact elsewhere.
He said some butterfly effect shit.
Yeah.
No.
Which is another movie similar to this where you can only travel back to where you've been.
Man, are we going to talk about that one?
Oh, maybe.
All right.
I'd need to rewatch it.
Oh, man, that might be tough. But it's... And then another question, too. Okay, so when they talk about, in this movie, going into a closet, a dark area, do you think they just do that so then no one sees them do it?
I guess. It seems like you just need a quiet place to concentrate more than anything else.
Yeah.
I don't think, the spatial geometry of a closet particularly affects whether you can time travel or not. It's I think it's more just about not being disturbed.
Got it. You're right, though. There are questions to ask when you start thinking about the time travel, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
I like that Curtis doesn't really care about that. I don't know. Okay.
Well, it's not about that. As you said, it's about relationships, and it's it's about
time?
Having to make hard. Well, yeah. Not to put too broad a point on it. About time.
It's too easy. My bad.
It's about being able to, sometimes having to make the hard choices in relationships, and sometimes having to prioritize one relationship over another. And seeing what happens when you do that. It's that's what makes it quite interesting.
Do you think what's made Richard Curtis's work